So we're so thrilled to bring this next guest to the Rail Talk studio. She's NBC Sports senior producer of horse racing and the college football studio show, Lindsay Schanzer. Welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Hi, guys.
Oh, it's so great to have you, and thank you for making time in what is undeniably a very, very busy week for you and everybody in the NBC production crew. You know, it's such a unique broadcast because, you know, most sports broadcasts, there's like a little bit of an intro, and then it's pretty much just calling the action. Mm-hmm. This is the opposite of that. It's pretty much all intro, and then a few minutes of action here and there. What are some of the big challenges of that, kind of having to fill so much airtime with relatively little action on the racetrack?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a way to describe it. We have obviously some great undercard races sprinkled in and out, but for the most part, we really do treat it as a 4.5-hour introduction to a 2-minute race. So it is a challenge to make sure that we are keeping the audience entertained. And one of the biggest challenges in general is knowing that we have a very dedicated horse racing audience that watches horse racing throughout the year. And certainly they want to pay attention to the undercard races. They want to know the ins and outs of the race itself. But we know a large part of our audience, a much larger part of our audience, I should say, maybe is watching horse racing for the first time in the year, the only time in the year. So we're trying to introduce them to the sport, introduce them to the field, and of course, what the event has to offer. So, you know, some people may not love seeing all the fashion and the drinks and the traditions, but we know a lot of our audience does. So that's a piece of it. And it's trying to really balance as much as possible over that 4.5 hours leading up to the race. You know, a little bit of racing, a little bit of fashion, a little bit of tradition, a little bit of celebrity, a little bit of food, whatever it is, you know, in a balanced way that so whenever you're tuning in, you're getting a little bit of something everywhere.
Yeah, and it must be a little bit of like orchestrating a circus and kind of herding cats all at the same time. So give everyone an idea of like how many people you're in touch with, you know, during the course of the 5-6 hours, how many different directions you're giving, how many cameras, like pull the curtain back, kind of give us an idea of the mechanics of it all.
A lot is the simple way to put it. It is a highly coordinated effort with, you know, a few hundred people on our crew, technical and production, 300 plus. We have a massive group of people working on this to put this thing together. And, you know, as far as direction goes, I mean, we've got, I want to say this year it's 14 members of our announce team surrounded, you know, all around Churchill Downs, some roving, some kind of in place. Larry Colmus is always in his booth, but Brittany Urton's going to be anywhere and everywhere around Churchill Downs. So it's not just coordinating with them, it's coordinating with the assistants that are walking them around, the spotters who are making sure we're identifying the right people, the camera people, the camera assistants, the audio tech to make sure they know where we're going, and everyone, of course, within the production team. But, you know, as far as a peek behind the curtain, I'll give you just a very brief look. We put a format together like this. It's 30-something pages long. It's got a lot going on. Everything is scripted to a T, you know, with the understanding that anything could change at the drop of a hat. Mm-hmm. And then we adjust to it on the fly. So we've got 29 segments over 5 hours, and we write it up. I put this thing together, the first edition of it, 2 weekends ago. Just to be prepared for whatever's going to come. And it says, we're doing this for 30 seconds, we're doing this for 15 seconds, this for 2:15, this for 3 minutes, whatever it is. And it takes you through 5 hours. And all of that takes an enormous amount of coordination. And we set it up, and, you know, we set it up 2 weeks ago with Tapan Street in the field. Now he's not in the field. It's not set up for Baeza, but we certainly may get him. So we're constantly reacting to what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm curious, like what it's like in the truck or on the headset when you guys are doing this, because, you know, I would think it takes like a certain type of personality to be able to do this, like to be calm, to not freak out, to be able to adjust on the fly. Like you said, do you or your people like meditate or anything? Is there anything like outside of work that you do to kind of get prepared for this level of potential chaos?
Just try to be super prepared, I think, is the best way to do it. I wouldn't say I necessarily meditate so much, although I'm probably don't know this. I'm 6.5 months pregnant, so I've taken on a bit of yoga.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. So I had a little bit of stress to it on top of everything else. But yeah, just trying to find as much zen as possible while things are going crazy around you. But I do think preparation and communication is the easiest way to feel that calm. It's going in, knowing the field, knowing the connections, knowing what you're trying to accomplish. We obviously have, outside of all of what I would like to do in the narrative of the 5-hour show, and then what needs to be done. We, of course, have all kinds of partners across Churchill Downs, within NBC, elements that kind of have to make their way within the show. And we got to find room for those things and make them feel authentic to the show. So it's, trying to please everyone, but most importantly, the audience.
And Lindsay, when you go into an event like this, and you said it's constantly changing because, Baeza could, draw in, and that would change the complexion of the race. Span Street, is out, and that kind of changes the way things going. When they do the draw, that changes the complexity of the race. But you guys have like features done ahead of time. Of those features, are there certain ones that you're like really excited about, or you're like, hey, that would be a really cool story to be able to promote to the rest of America so they could, kind of see what goes on owning and training a racehorse?
Yeah, it's interesting. We do try to plan as much ahead of time as we can because that gives us the opportunity to do more dynamic shoots, on location, not always at Churchill Downs, for example. And we have the benefit of covering much of the road to the Kentucky Derby, or at least the 100-point prep races. So we follow the stories as we go and have a good sense, if a horse wins a 100-point prep race, if they want to go, they're in, they have enough points. So, in the case of journalism, obviously we knew he was the real deal, but certainly earned enough points to go. And his trainer, Michael McCarthy, has had a hell of a year. He's been out of house and home due to the California fires. And we knew, pretty immediately between that and just the emotion of coming in with the Derby favorite was going to be a story we wanted to tell America and introduce them to this trainer they may not know so well. We knew this was going to be the return of Bob Baffert, and there's a lot that goes with that, but it's absolutely going to be a headline going into the race. And we knew we wanted to sit down and spend some time talking to him, which we will do. I will say probably the piece I'm most excited about that isn't quite done yet, but I'm personally excited about it. We've got 89-year-old Dwayne Lucas, who's back in the race, is going to spend the day with Steve Kornacki, who is an enormous fan of Wayne's and has been his whole life. And, some people don't necessarily get to see that about Steve and know really how passionate he is about horse racing. And Wayne was kind of his first, love in the sport in terms of someone he would always bet on and really track his horses. So he's so excited to spend the day with him. And I think it's going to be a unique perspective into somebody who's been around for a long time.
Steve was actually on our show a couple of weeks ago and was talking about the fact that some of the legends that he follows and the coach was one of the guys that he mentioned. So we love Steve. He's a great personality and he kind of transcends, a couple of different worlds. So it was great to have him on. But he said the same thing. He said that there are certain horses that he's personally kind of pulling for because it would help, perpetuate the story of the industry.
Steve is a brilliant guy who absolutely follows the numbers if you know what he does for his day job, but he will tell you straight out that he will bet with his heart constantly. And he's happy to say it, but
Yeah, it's hard not to, especially on a big day like the Derby, because like you said, there's so many backstories that you're so involved in and really know like down to a T. I'm curious a little bit about the logistics of the cameras because Churchill Downs is huge and, you're directing so many different things, so many different angles, so many different locations. How many cameras are you guys going to have stationed around the track? And this kind of part B to that question, they're racing today, tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, like how much prep work and like kind of sampling do you do of the races leading up to the Derby?
Yeah, we have over 60 cameras. I don't have the exact number, but it is a sprawling venue, and we're definitely trying to capture as much as possible. Our trucks pulled in Saturday or Sunday of this week, so we have a full week of lead up. We know what the racing schedule is. We have the benefit of having done this for a long time. This is our 25th year producing the Kentucky Derby. So every year we gain more information. There's more about the cameras that we have out there that we trust and we know, they're set up correctly. They're going to work. And then we introduce new cameras. So, for example, last year we had something called a nucleus camera. That is this tiny camera that we placed right on the finish line directly across from the mirror. Some tracks have similar things. Churchill Downs didn't have one. So we implemented it for the first time last year. And it turned into a 3-way photo finish. So it was, very lucky that we did that for the first time out. And this year we're doubling down on it. So we had 1 last year. We're going to have 4 this year on either side of each track. So that's something we need to test and make sure is functioning properly. We've got jockey cameras, drones, the bat cam, which is my favorite shot that's been added to horse racing. That's the wire camera that we have all along the backstretch that gives you this just super dynamic, intimate look at the group traveling along the backstretch. So realistically, we have on our schedule that by Thursday afternoon, all the cameras are up and firing and covering racing, so we can rehearse it with replays and know what we're seeing. They may be up a little bit earlier than that, but we have everybody ready to go by Thursday afternoon.
Gotcha. Well, thank you, first of all, for that wire camera, because it's frankly an embarrassing amount of tracks in America that do not have that camera. It's a pretty important angle, I would say.
Pretty important, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
if you want to know who wins, Joe.
That's right.
That's all. It's not. Otherwise, it's no big deal.
Mildly important, but
Lindsay, what is your favorite part of this week? Is it, when the draw comes out? Is it when you know that everything's working? Is it the production meeting? Like, for you personally, what is your favorite moment? Like, you wake up in the morning and you're like, oh, cool, this is happening.
Yeah. You asked me personally. So the reality is, for me, it's probably Wednesday afternoon is our first full production meeting where just about everyone is here, and we get to go through the format for the first time with everybody. And it's really the first time I get to see a lot of these people, particularly our announce team, who have become some of my closest friends. We have the most wonderful team that we work with. And it's the time that we have the most people together on site, Wednesday, but Derby in particular. So I just get this sort of rush of joy when we all sit down together and I see all these faces that, sometimes I only get to see once a year, maybe back at the Preakness and the Breeders' Cup, but this is really the beginning of it. So That's probably my favorite moment. I would say the most rewarding, covering a great race is one thing, but the most difficult part of the show that is so rewarding when we nail it is the walkover, because the way we do it is hop around from subject to subject, and we'll do maybe 12 interviews all in succession. And we've got our announcers running on a muddy track, whatever it is, from place to place with the cameras, and just all of the logistics that go into hopping around from one person to another. We have spotters with us to make sure we're identifying the right horses, because it's just absolute chaos in there. To do it right and the pacing is good and you meet so many characters at once is the most rewarding part of the show. So I look forward to that with nerves, but excitement.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you guys have been rewarded for your coverage. You're a 6-time Sports Emmy Award winner. If you have any ideas for a show that's trying desperately to win awards and hasn't yet, please give us some award bait tip. But also it's such a fascinating production. And I think you guys have been rewarded in the way that the ratings keep getting better. Yeah. And I wonder how much pride you take in that, because it's not like the Super Bowl where, no matter what, hundreds of millions of people are going to watch. You really have to put the work in to teach people about these horses and about these stories. Like, have you been heartened and encouraged by the ratings continuing to go up?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I try not to follow ratings too much because you end up putting a lot of pressure on yourself, but I'm really encouraged by what I see. Last year was great. Obviously, we had Derby 150 and we were rewarded with this incredible race. But yeah, I think it's a testament to the audience. It's also really a testament to the event. And I do have to shout out Churchill Downs. They put on an incredible event each year, and it's obviously their major focus of the year, but the venue is incredible. The race is incredible. They put a lot into it. And I think, horse racing may not be quite as popular as it was, but this is still an event on every bucket list. People want to come, they want to watch it. They really see it as part of Americana, and just, it evolves, it modernizes, but there's so much nostalgia in it. The traditions really are there and have been there, many of them for 150 plus years. So I think that's why we really try to lean into a lot of that and make sure we're giving people the opportunity to see that element of it and teach them about the racing. Because, as you mentioned, what I love about covering this sport in general is the stories. Covering the Super Bowl is great, and I love covering football, but, people know, well, Tom Brady's retired. I used to use him as an example, but let's say, people know Patrick Mahomes. They don't, it's always, you're trying so hard to find a different angle, but You get to the Derby, it's a new crop of 3-year-old horses every year. They all have different connections. Every year you're going to get a Lonnie Briley, you're going to get a Team Chunk of Gold, and you get to teach people about, who these people are, how they got here, what their dreams are. And I've always really enjoyed the blank slate of possibilities that the Derby brings.
Yeah. Lindsay, my last question. So Joe and I are both very active in HISA, which is, trying to govern the industry and make a uniform set of rules and testing regulations, and basically try to make the industry safer, for all athletes that are involved.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of lose track of this because we're so, insulated in our own industry. We think that that's a good thing. We know that that's going to help the sport, but you're trying to promote the sport, both to the audience and also within NBC, I'm sure. Are you finding that we've regained our social license, or is there still kind of some pushback from both sides as far as, hey, why are you covering this industry for 5.5 hours on a Saturday?
I think there will always be pushback. As you guys know, the biggest challenge in horse racing is that the number will never get to zero, even though it gets closer and closer and closer and real efforts are being made. So I think there will always be pushback, and that's inevitable. We certainly don't get much pushback about the Derby. I think partly because of what I just mentioned and these sort of bigger events. But yeah, there are questions out there, and it is delicate on our part too, because we want to enlighten the audience about the changes that are being made. And I think that's relevant, and it's
right.
Information that they should have, and it's important to what's going on out there. But we also try not to focus too much on it because we don't want to distract from the sport that's happening. We have to cover the event. We have to cover the sport. And people are tuning in for that as well. So it's walking a delicate line, but we're prepared for it. We talk about it a lot. We know, the updates to legislation, whatever it is, different rules and regulations that are being put in across the country. We have a meeting with the stewards and vets, and Lisa Lazarus will come visit us as well, just to inform our crew, usually on Thursday morning of these big race weeks, just to make sure we're all up to date and on the same page about what those protocols are.
Yep. No, I think you guys do a great job. And Joe and I were talking to Tarico a couple of months ago, and we asked him about how did you handle when Baffert was banned? I mean, he's such a big personality, and so many people identify him with the sport that when he's not there, it's like you can't ignore it. And I think you guys did Joe and I talk about it all the time, you guys did a really phenomenal job of that delicate dance of how much do we mention him even though he's not here, and the same thing I think with the broader view of the social license. That's why I was asking.
No, it's a good question.
There's so much needle threading and line walking and doing this broadcast, and you guys do an unbelievable job. So Lindsay Schanzer, thank you so much for the time. Best of luck this week. We'll be watching and appreciate you taking our fans behind the curtain.
Thank you guys so much. Happy to be here.